Good evening and welcome on a Monday night to Generation Movie. My name is J.W. Colwell, your host, joined as always by my co-host in crime, Rich Drees. How are you doing tonight, Rich?
I'm doing great, man.
As we're hurtling towards the fall, and we're hurtling towards holiday season and prestige movie season, and good times, right?
Yeah, lots of great stuff coming up on the horizon. I'm starting to get word about what's going to be screening at the Philadelphia Film Festival and like their spotlights evenings, and there's some couple titles that I was been looking forward to seeing. So can't wait to get my eyeballs on.
I've gotten to 2 this week, and then next week. Okay, so a couple things. Next weekend, I'm getting to see the Superman documentary that you've already seen, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to that. I'm going to that on Saturday at 4 with our good friend Jeff Fowler.
Okay. As I told you, as I messaged you, bring a box of Kleenex, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna be fucking losing. I'm gonna be honest. I was losing it in the trailer. I was crying during the trailer where they were like that sequence where it's like anyone I'm not a Superman, but I mean I guess anybody could be. Like, no, you are Superman. You were Superman for an entire generation of people.
Absolutely.
And just the way you played him was like enough to keep things going. Anyway, so we're going to that on Saturday. I think Saturday is also Batman Day. So the theater here is playing the original 89 Batman at 12, Batman Mask of the Phantasm at 3.
Oh.
And then Batman Forever at 5. So it's like one of those things where it's like, what was that?
Is that an AMC thing?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but Batman Forever. Like, I was thinking about it. I haven't seen Batman Returns on the big screen in forever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably since the first time I saw it. Probably, the same year it came out, 92, because the year I graduated. So I haven't seen it on a big screen. I was like, I looked down, I'm like, Batman Forever? Really? Okay. I don't hate Batman Forever. Batman Forever got a lot of play at the day camp I worked the summer it came out. There were Batman Forever pogs that people were playing with and doing all kinds of stuff for. So it was Ron Pog time.
It's the better of the two Joel Schumacher Batman films, which I know is not saying a whole lot in its favor. It feels like damning with the faintest.
I think there's a lot of good things going for it. I don't think the Two-Face character is great, but I think Carrie owns the Riddler pretty well. Yeah, and I think I also think that Chase Meridian is one of the
Riddler played as like Joker substitutes, and it's
everything.
Joker top for my tastes.
It's no Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which I looked down and saw that at 3:00. I'm like, I'm gonna have to make plans to go see Batman Mask of the Phantasm because that's one of the better Batman movies. Anyway, I did get to 2 movies this week. I want to talk about them quickly because we might have a review of the second one, but the first one we're not going to talk a lot about. Killer's Game I saw.
Okay.
J.T. Perry, who's a former stunt person, and you know what it is? It's not like people are like, "Oh, is it like John Wick?" Like, no,
Mhm.
not like John Wick. It's kind of a junky '90s action movie. Like it all the killers are named, and all their names are sprayed across the screen in either blood or whatever they're, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those movies where it does cutesy little intros for every one of the other killers. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
it had, I was 90 nostalgic about it. It does have a nice performance from
Hmm.
Batista, who actually I think has potential to be the best, maybe the best WWE star ever. Yeah, well, just because I think he's really working. Like, he's really working at his craft. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You
He
know,
wants to be an actor. He doesn't want to be a personality like
yeah, The
Dwayne
Rock
Johnson.
or well, Cena's working hard too. I don't want to say anything bad about Cena.
Yeah, Cena,
Um,
I would put as a close second, but
but Batista's working really hard. He's taking quirky roles. He works with good actors, like Jodie Foster, and like where you're just like, no. The movie itself is again a throwback to '90s action movies, and whether you like them or not, like I remember my good friend Sid Michaels, we used to talk about sometimes you just need a piece of garbage to realize how better movies are, right? And sometimes you enjoy them anyway. They're like guilty pleasure movies. If like everybody has their kitsch guilty pleasure, mine were always action movies or horror films, right? So it's not great, but it's got great action sequences. It's got what I mean. It's got good fighting because it's stunt people doing the fighting. But
yeah,
it's not John Wick level. It never
it,
it never aspires to be. It
it
also
sounds
has a
like a good
weird.
popcorn muncher. You just sit there, you
Well,
munch your popcorn, and you watch it.
yeah, you drink your soda. Ben Kingsley shows up. Like it's got like a weird pedigree kind of thing going on where you're like,
Okay.
Why is Ben Kingsley in this movie as an aging hitman? Who's like a professional like provocateur kind of thing where he sends other people out. It has like a wonky hitman website that's on a phone that they're tracking people. So it's got all those things, and it's got decent action. I could easily see it becoming a movie like on Netflix that goes to number one and stays there for like 2 weeks, just because people
Hmm.
might find it like a disengaging jaunt. It did poorly though at the box office, so it is gonna be out very quickly.
Catch it quick, folks, if you're at all
Yeah,
interested.
yeah.
It did what,
It's if
four
you're
million?
yeah. It no 2 million,
Oh,
2.6.
sorry.
Yeah, about 1,000 a theater. Beetlejuice number one this weekend, of course, with
Hmm.
a
And it only
slight
dropped by what, 54%,
54%.
which is
Yeah,
really amazing.
that's incredible because I told you I thought we were talking about it. I think it's going to hold out until Joker hits. Like, there's nothing between now and Joker, right? That's going to. Although I did see something else this weekend.
Um, I would say Megalopolis is coming up in 2 weeks,
But you
but
don't actually think it's going to do well.
it's tracking so poorly. I thought there would be a morbid fascination, the slow down at the
I
car
don't think
accident,
I don't think people have morbid
trauma
fascinations
for
like
a
you and
little
I
bit.
do. Like, I have a morbid fascination because every time I see the trailer for it, I just go, so much talent. I'm so nervous. Like,
It looks beautiful. It
it
looks
looks
beautiful. There's
beautiful.
amazing
I
imagery in that trailer,
Let's talk
and
about a movie I did see, and I want to tell everybody. I'm going to tell everybody right now. Pretty fucking great. It was
I heard
really
good things.
it was really good. Like, really good. Like,
Hmm.
the kind of movie that people our age can take their nephews or grandkids or whatever they have to and both be clapping at the same things. That happened. That happened.
Hmm.
I went to a screening on Saturday with the nephews. Place was jammed, lots of people, and four quadrants, like elderly people, elderly grandfathers, fathers, kids. You know what I mean? Like, 4-quadrant movie, and I'm going to tell you right now, it sticks the landing, and it has quite possibly, like I know when everybody saw the trailers and they're like, "Oh, this looks bad," right? Because I did, but the comedy is funny, and the fucking relationship between Orion Pax and D, who will become Megatron, is
Mm-hmm.
really good.
I
Like
heard it's really something. I'm not a
way,
Transformers fan. So maybe I'm actually gonna go see this weekend. I don't know.
it was good.
Um,
Like, and the thing is, like, the action sequences are really cool. It has a cool Cybertron plot. Like, there's a cool overarching plot to go along with the just the plot that Optimus Prime is kind of like the before he becomes Optimus Prime. He is a guy that doesn't. He is very much like a Disney princess in the sense that he doesn't want to like. Is this it? Like, because this isn't good enough. Like, I don't know what this is, this life, but I want more, and I know I'm better at that stuff. Like, and Megatron's kind of like the friend who gets pulled along, and is like,
mhm.
why the fuck am I always in these fucking things? And he's because I'm your friend. I'm always in these situations because I'm your friend. And then as things pile up, you know, the turn is so good, Rich. The turn is so succulent and sweet and
Mm.
amazing and incredible and just it's probably the best Transformers movie ever. Like even the movie like from 86.
Um,
I was trying to explain to my nephew
I'm
that
not a big fan of the '86 movie. I will tell you that right
well,
now.
the 86 movie has got a place in a lot of people's hearts because it's so fucking it's just
'Cause,
it
yeah, you all
rips.
saw it when you were not.
Right, we saw it when we were 9, and we also it chose to rip out your heart as a 9-year-old. So
Hmm.
I think there's a trauma love to it. That's that's astounding. What I will say to
That
you
keeps you
here
going
is
back to Never-Ending Story as well.
yes, yeah. Part of the love of Never Ending Story is a giant flying dog, and the idea that as a kid you were exposed to somebody dragging his horse through the mud that wouldn't let his horse go. The childhood trauma is part of it. Is the idea that when you're a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old or whatever age you were when you saw these movies. I was 12 when I saw Transformers. I was 10 when I saw Never Ending Story. When it happens, it happens in your head, and you're thinking to
Hmm.
yourself, "I'm seeing something I shouldn't be seeing." So it becomes
Yeah, I
amazing.
dare say I was maybe a bit traumatized by the end of like Time Bandits. When I was like what 13 when
Sure,
that came out.
these are all again. It's a part and parcel of the challenge that the '80s was, as opposed to any other time in filmmaking for children. Right. The reason we've grown up pretty solid people, our generation, is because we were challenged and we were given stuff. Anyway, what I'm gonna say is Transformers One. I know you're thinking to yourself, I'm not gonna go see it. But if you're a Transformers fan, you have to go. And I guarantee you, the last 20 minutes are some of the best Transformers things ever put on film. And the sequence, it's so good, Rich. The turn and then the the pop up is absolutely like it's beautiful. It's and the voices are okay. The one thing people were kind of milling about is Peter Cullen needs to be talked about at this moment because Peter Cullen has been Optimus Prime since Optimus Prime has been Optimus Prime. So
Hmm.
that's part of it. But the vocal talent in the movie is really good. Lawrence Fishburne, Scarlett Johansson, Chris Hemsworth, and Brian Tyree Henry.
Johnson, Henry.
No,
Sorry.
yeah, Brian Tyree Henry. They're all really good. And Keegan Michael Smith, Keegan, no, what's his name? Fuck, I'm fucking up.
Keegan Michael Key.
He plays Bumblebee. And he is the comic relief, but he is so funny that it doesn't matter. Like that you're thinking to yourself, oh, Bumblebee's never going to talk again at some point. They're creating this giant vacuum of a character who's a motor mouth who's never going to talk.
Motor mouth, I get it.
Anyway. I don't know. It was one of the better movie going experiences of the year, and actually the one movie that I wasn't. My nephews were super excited, and I wasn't super excited. But as I'm watching the movie, I'm like, this is pretty good. Like and then you start seeing the crowd reacting around you, and you're like, holy shit! It's not just me thinking it's good. It's everybody thinking it's good. And then again, the last 20 minutes hit. Also, stay all the way through the credits. There's a sequence at the end that's fucking devastating, and it's amazing. And it's a kids movie, and you're like, I didn't think they'd go there, but they do, and just awesome. So that is my review of that movie. And like when you see it, I would like to talk to you about it, just because I want to because especially if you're not a Transformers fan, I think it checks all the right boxes for an origin movie. Like and I would say that and this is the best way to put this, it's not an Optimus Prime origin movie so much as it is a Megatron. They lay the groundwork perfectly for Megatron to get to be Megatron. And when he becomes Megatron, it's like, well, we could see that coming. Oh, that hurts. I'm
not the biggest Transformers fan in the world. I hate the Michael Bay films. Actually, they're just not good. And so it sounds like it can be a fun franchise. I like Bumblebee.
These are still Michael Bay movies. These are both.
He's got a contractual obligation credit.
Well, I saw Bay and Spielberg up on the screen. I was like, oh, I love Steven Spielberg. Anyway,
on Transformers films, 15 years after he's in the ground.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm just saying, I'm going to give it props. It's one of the better kids movies I've seen, and also it's a movie where you can actually touch base with your kids and relive. Like I was explaining to my nephew, I'm like, he's like, so you like Optimus Prime too? I'm like, yes. I've liked Optimus Prime since I was 12. I have Optimus Prime somewhere in the stuff we've had around forever. I had the original Optimus Prime. I got it as a Christmas present, and I still have him. He's in a box. So, yes, great movie. Let's get some comments, and then we'll get to some, Bureau of Paranormal Agency work. Okay, comments. Not a lot tonight. Good evening, friends. Good evening, Ken McKernan. Glad for you to join us. Jamie Hill. Hello, Jamie Hill. Thank you for joining us. Joe Ridgely. Good evening, Joe. Gentlemen. Good evening, Joe. Jamie says, hi, Joe. I say, hi, Joe. I say, hi, Jamie. I saw the 4:30 movie in West Palm. I won't share my opinion because I don't want to get beat up again like I did on the new Crow flick. You didn't get beat up on the new Crow flick. I feel bad that he feels he got. By the way, Rich, you were able to play the interview cassettes you found in Press Collection. I'd love to hear some of them.
I tested a few of them, and they do play. They didn't seize up in the one cassette player that I still have that works. And I did do a test of, playing it through my normal mixing board that I use for one of my other podcasts, and then recording it in Audacity. And I played it back a little bit, and that process kind of works fairly well. So I can digitize these things. The thing that for me was, as I was listening to this, my voice sounded higher pitched than it normally does to me, probably because I was nervous. These are like early in my career of journalism, so I wasn't as relaxed with everything.
Now with higher pitch, Rich.
Yeah, no one needs that. And so
Hi,
so
hi.
I
It's
do
a
want
pleasure
to
to
get
meet
these.
you.
I do want to get these, entirely digitized at some point and find something that we can use them for, even if it's like off week episodes on my other podcasts. Uh, but I also have to kind of get through work past me being just cringing every time I hear my own voice on these. I can listen to I can listen to the stuff I do with like JW. I can listen to the stuff I do with Natasha. I can listen to the stuff that I do with the Philadelphia Film Critics Circle, and all of that is fine. It
Sounds like
doesn't
good.
bother me.
It sounds like good voice, Rich. Like, hi, how
Yeah,
you doing? I'm Rich.
radio voice rich. And but when I was listening to some of those, I was just like, ah.
Oh, yeah.
So again, it's
I think
it's
that's always. I
my
think that's
ego and
always
my.
tough.
I'm sorry.
I think that's always tough when you go back and either
Yeah,
look at old pictures of yourself and you're like, why did my hair look like that? What happened? What was I thinking?
I've stuck with this do for about 30 years now. So
I go back and forth. Although I did first time I ever went to get my haircut at a salon at a place where like I did the my favorite haircut of all time, which was the red heat Arnold Schwarzenegger
yeah,
haircut that I legit asked for.
before I cut this to kind of do like the quasi vintagey hairstyle that I normally sport here. I used to have hair that was down to about here.
Oh, I could never pull that off.
Yeah, you didn't know me. You didn't know me in my real like
your hippie high
not
pitched
hippie
voice
so much, but
days.
alt rock journalist phase.
Oh, you're like basically one of the stars of Singles or
Yeah,
one of the one of the stars of High Fidelity.
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think that's always tough when you're looking at your stuff. Journalistic balls hadn't dropped yet, Rich. Possibly, I don't know.
Thanks, Ken.
Ah,
Hey, if you're in your
hi,
first year,
it's like
first couple of years as a reporter, and you have to suddenly interview the guy
I'm
who just
Rich.
won an Oscar for producing the best film of the year. That's
Hi,
also the highest grossing film of the year. You tend to be a little nervous at first.
hi, I'm Rich Drees. Introducing Mickey Mouse. Shut up. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, so tonight again we're doing a good like a movie that I hadn't watched in a while. I
Plugs.
rewatched it today. Oh yeah, before we go, yeah, let's do that because that way, after I beat up Joe about the crow, I won't get yelled at for. If you like our content, please subscribe to the Indie Escape Network on YouTube. We also have our wonderful Facebook page, and we're also on all the other places. We're on Instagram and all these different places. So if you like getting info, you like getting news, you like hearing Rich and I talk about movies, or you dream of Sunday being able to hear the lost cassettes of Rich Drees, like and find us on Instagram and YouTube. And I'm good, Rich. I'm good. I'm good at this stuff. Now
There,
to the main course tonight. Hellboy, Guillermo del Toro, Mike Mignola, Ron Perlman, the exquisite Selma Blair. Oh, I as I was rewatching today, I remember two things I was thinking about today. As I was watching, I was thinking about Cruel Intentions and about how when I was watching Cruel Intentions, didn't care about Sarah Michelle Gellar. I liked the Selma Blair character,
that's
and
fair.
I just thought she was nicer. And also, I think Selma Blair is one of those actresses that I think I think she grows on you. Here she is with Hellboy and Abe Sapien and the amazing Jeffrey Tambor as kind of a dick of an FBI runner. And let's get into production. So I think this movie is one of those movies where you look at it and you like when we originally saw it in 2004, 20 years ago, right? I think it's one
Hmm.
of those movies that you think maybe it doesn't hold up, maybe things don't work, but part of that part of that goes away when you start watching it. And what I was feeling tonight during the rewatch is, this movie came out before, before we had the MCU as we know it, before we had, Zack Snyder trying to reinvent DC or any of the. This movie came out before those things happened, so it's actually part of the, pre MCU kind of world, right? And so one of the things that Guillermo del Toro is not an Academy winning award winning director at the time. And you just start piecing together all the different things that come together in the movie, Rich, and the production starts. The most outlandish thing about the production is that it filmed. I was reading this and I couldn't believe it. It shot for 6 days a week for 130 days. So 4 months, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturdays, because it didn't have a second unit. And Del Toro was editing on Sundays, so even though the actors and everybody else was off, he was working. So this is before Del Toro hits, right? And he has a couple movies under his belt, but so he is busting his ass on this very big production at the time, right? You know, I just think it's a really interesting thing. They had trouble getting it to a studio because at that point, superhero movies weren't the money making ventures they are now, right?
True.
And you know that's one of the interesting stories is that they shopped this around to what 10
Now,
studios before.
I don't want to give the impression that Del Toro was an entire unknown. I mean, in horror and genre circles, we were already all about Kronos and Devil's Backbone, and even he had done in English language films Mimic and Blade 2 already before he went on to do Hellboy. So I think this is kind of like on the road to his big success, his big breakout success, which was 2 years later with Pan's Labyrinth. But yeah, this is definitely him working hard, to show, hey, I got these chops. We have a great concept here, and we're going to make a fantastic movie for you.
And like I said, I think having to shop it to a bunch of studios, they basically started whittling down how they were going to do it and how they were going to shoot. No second unit, editing on the only day off of the week. It becomes this really kind of like it's a big budget, right? It's a $60 million budget, so it's one of the highest budgeted films he had at the time, right? And one of the interesting stories you hear about the production was that Del Toro has always been an interesting creature designer and also being able to shoot creatures. Did you hear anything about the story that he had invited Ray Harryhausen before his death to come and
Oh yeah,
look at the monsters, and like on this movie, he invited Ray Harryhausen, and Harryhausen basically turned him down because he said that movies had gotten too violent. And I was thinking about it, Rich.
He wanted that Ray Harryhausen feel for what was ultimately, a lot of computer animation stuff. Anything that had like tentacles.
The Samhain,
the feel of that. It does have that kind of vibe to it, at least.
Well, and also like the creatures are well designed. They're obviously, some of them are CGI, but a lot of them are people in suits doing real hard work. You know what I mean? That he would later do in the other Hellboy movie he does. But I thought that was also a real interesting pre-production behind the scenes that, Harryhausen was invited but decided not to come. But it didn't stop Del Toro from wanting to make a Harryhausen film, right? And so you have that going on. You also have, the writing and everything going on. Basically, the film, loosely based on the first Hellboy comic called Seed of Destruction, which is mentioned all the time during the script. Although there are Del Toro touches all throughout, right?
Mm.
the occult Nazi philosophy, the idea that the Nazis were studying the occult, a little bit of Raiders. You know what I mean? Like just a little bit.
Also, Del Toro is a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan, so the elder gods out in space is just total Lovecraft. And we'll get to more of his love of Lovecraft later on.
Yes, when you with the one creature. But yeah, I think that's an interesting side note, right? That during the writing of the movie, he kind of like it's not all based on the Seed of Destruction comic book. He brings a lot to the table when he's writing a movie. Loving the the occult stuff, the idea that just this concept that basically Hellboy it's kind of a father son movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, he has two dads. One dad wants him to go bad. One dad wants him to go good. And that's another Del Toro touch, right? A flourish where, Hellboy is kind of a child character and Del Toro is notoriously good at writing kids into these horrific and horror situations, right? Having to make good decisions and, a fable aspect to it, which is also part of the writing of this movie. And I think that's an amazing kind of, the nature versus nurture thing. Are you what you are from the get go or what you are from how you're raised, right? So John Hurt playing the dad who finds Hellboy as a child, that's part of a Del Toro script. And so that's another thing in this production that we have to talk about. The special effects certainly are great, but what Del Toro brings to the table, he brings everything to the table when he makes a movie, right? They're all throughout
Mm-hmm.
his movies. These, lost kids or kids that could go wrong or maybe don't go wrong, or because they're raised by or they get love from a certain place, they're greater than their destinies could be, right? And I think that's an amazing thing to look at with regards to the Hellboy character in this film, right? Is that Del Toro, even when he's not, before he's hit big, you're right, Kronos, Devil's Backbone, Blade 2, all amazing, all reasons for us to go, hey, this guy might be really good, right? But this is where he brings it to the table, gets a $60 million budget, and is allowed to flourish, right? And and it's at the time, it's not a genre that's big. Comic book adaptations are kind of like meh. We had a bunch of movies in the '90s that did not do great. So, bleh. We haven't had the MCU running yet. And I think that's a real interesting place with the production is that they find this different way. Now, also, if you're digging, you find out that um, as you're watching Ron Perlman in this movie, Rich, he's not the first choice for Hellboy, and the choices were the one isn't crazy, but the other one is certainly the two people that were originally up for the role were Vin Diesel, which isn't that crazy because Vin Diesel was doing everything right around this time, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other one though is wild. Jeremy Renner, right, was one of the people they talked about for Hellboy, and he basically said, "I'm good.
I mean,
I have no ties. I have no ties to the source material. I'm not great." That's kind of interesting, right? That Renner
he'd have
was
to bulk up a bit, but I think Renner would have been an interesting choice. He knows how to. At this point in his career, he was already familiar with prosthetic makeup because he did an episode of what it was either Buffy or Angel where he played a vampire. So they had to make him up for that. So it wasn't like that would have been a new experience for him. Uh, I don't know.
I think Vin Diesel would have been a bad choice, but the idea once you see the movie, you're like, it can't be anybody other than Perlman.
Yeah,
Because
there's some
Perlman
acting moments that I don't think Vin Diesel could ever reach in this
in
movie.
this movie. Well, I think that Perlman brings the right amount of bravado slash 5-year-old because he's kind of like this amazing character where he's a child. We don't know how old he's ever going to become. We don't in this movie, and he's been around for 60 years. He doesn't age that much. and he's mature. Like his maturity level is not that great. So it's Perlman runs with it. Um, Last thing on production, for some reason, they always pick Doug Jones to bring these creatures to life, like Abe Sapien, but they never allowed Doug Jones to speak. And one of the interesting things here is David Hyde Pierce is picked to voice Abe Sapien in this movie, but he never accepts the credit out of respect for Doug Jones, which I think is behind the scenes thing is you get the idea of the camaraderie and the respect that people had on this movie working with each other, right?
Uh-huh.
And I think it's really a cool thing when somebody goes, I'm not going to take credit for the character I'm voicing because the character is actually brought to life by the actor that's in the suit. And Doug Jones, for whatever reason, at this point in his career, wasn't being allowed to talk as the characters he was creating, which was just weird. But
Baffling.
that's
Especially because he has a great voice. If you look at him as Saru on Star Trek Discovery, it's like, that's a great voice, man.
he's got a really good voice, and then, like I said, for whatever reason, at this point in his career, people were like, "No, we don't want to hear him talk," and I don't understand it. But it's also the kind of thing where at least David Hyde Pierce was good enough to go, "Hey, I'm not going to take any credit for this. Right? I'm just voicing this character when that guy's working really hard." Um, so, any other things that you noticed digging up about production?
Not really.
No, like I said,
There's,
aside from the really
I
wonky
do want to
schedule.
give a I do want to give a shout out. There's a lot of things in here that really look like they were practical.
Yeah,
Um, some of the creature stuff was very much practical. Some of it was obviously they had to do with CG, but I think Del Toro is of that school. Obviously, if he was looking to bring Harryhausen in for some stuff, to consult, if you will, that he wants to do the physical. He wants to splat the blood, the fake blood around, and I think the movie is all the better for that.
one and a big shout out in that case because somebody doesn't get credit like when we're looking at the creature, but the Samael creature is actually played by an actor named Brian Steele, who will later work with Del Toro in on Hellboy the Golden Circle. So he comes back. He's so good
Mhm.
as the creature in this movie, multiple times playing a bunch of different the same creature, but over multiple things. And the creature designs are awesome. That's another thing that has to the production
Oh yeah.
design on the creature Samael is amazing in the sense that it's constantly contorting and changing and moving its arm. So when you're facing it, it moves its arm, and then the arm is already facing the other direction, and it just spins its torso. That is not something that Del Toro has any problem doing. Is coming up with creature designs.
Mhm.
They're the more squid like the better. Um, and this is one of those movies that has it in abundance, and the creature designs are all pretty exquisite. And like I said, I think that Del Toro touches of changing some things around writing wise to better fit in. Just he brings a totality to it when he's looking at a subject or a movie in the production that he just makes everything around it better, right? And he has a unique singular vision. So um, that is a perfect place to bounce to the next thing. And the next thing we have is, of course, box office. And this is where it gets fun because this movie is a major hit when it comes out in 2004.
Mhm.
Although we do have to talk about some of the controversy of when it did come out in 2004, which is always fun. Um, because again, controversy is fun. Um, so box office it opens on April 4th. Um, April 2nd. I'm sorry, 20. 2004. It grossed
Mhm.
$23.1 million its opening weekend on 3,000 screens. It goes on to gross about $59.7 million in North America, and it grosses another $40.2 million in the rest of the world for $99.8 million total against a budget of anywhere from $60 to $66 million. A major hit, an incredibly major hit. Although at the time, and this is something I don't remember because I didn't buy in any controversy, right? But I'm reading about it today, and I was like, holy shit, there was a lot of controversy because it comes up several places. When it opened in 2004, it was around Easter. So, um, some theaters refused to show the movie because of the hell being in the title, which is crazy to me. Also, certain theaters in the South marketed the film as Hello Boy instead of Hellboy to avoid perceptions of sacrilege
I
with the
mean,
with the release of the Passion of the Christ, which
well,
I was thinking about that today as I'm reading the controversy. Like, let me understand. The controversy is with Hellboy because hell is in the title, but you have no controversy with the sheer volume of violence that is in the Passion of the Christ, which is one of the most violent and abhorrent movies I have. It. That movie is so gross on so many levels,
yeah,
and it's a weird thing where you're like, you look down, and you're like, the Happy-Go-Lucky Hellboy movie was that was sacrilegious. Okay,
well, first of all, remember that that I'm surprised that they were able to get it released with the title of Hellboy, because just a few years before that, the South Park guys had their film South Park Goes to Hell, and the MPAA said no, you have to change the title of it. So they turned it into a circumcision joke by calling it Bigger, Longer, Uncut. And so it's weird that people are hung up on that, and especially when comparing it to Passion of the Christ, which, A, as you said, it's a very violent film, and B, I don't think it's a very good film because I don't think it gives the proper context for the sacrifice that Jesus goes
did
through. If you
I
want to look at
really?
it liturgically, and
Yeah,
that's a whole nother a whole nother
that's a
show.
whole
I
other
get,
conversation.
believe me, I got 20 minutes on it, and
Can I tell you the funniest Passion of the Christ story? Because since it came up, so I Ren Schmidt was a good friend, passed away recently, and we made plans to go see the Passion of the Christ. Ren was a devout Catholic, and very religious, and him and I got along, even though I wasn't. I was kind of like
you're a sinful heathen. We know.
I was his favorite heathen. And so we go to a Saturday afternoon or a Friday afternoon screening of the Passion of the Christ, opening weekend. Place is fucking packed. We go to Cinemark. I get popcorn, candy, and Bunch of Crunch. I get a soda, popcorn, and Bunch of Crunch. And I'm in the theater and I'm watching it. The place is jammed, and I'm sitting next to Ren, and people are fucking crying everywhere, and I'm just like, people are crying, and they're raising their rosaries up, and I was sitting there eating Bunch of Crunch, and I was like, it was okay. I go, it was really violent though, wasn't it? Was Christ's life that violent? And I'm like, maybe. I'm like, okay. But I didn't get it. And then then the movie goes on to gross $350 million, and up until this year was the highest grossing R-rated film ever made. And but it's just one of those funny stories. I remember Ren looking at me like, fucking heathen, just shaking his head, as I'm eating my Bunch of Crunches, as our the Lord and
It's
Savior is being tortured to death. It just
it's
wasn't my
really
gig.
tough about that movie because we're getting far afield here. But I'll just put it is because people, religion is often a very personal experience. And they were having, as you said, people around you were crying and stuff. They were having very personal reactions, and I was sitting there going, looking at it as a movie. I wasn't going expecting it to be gospel. If I want
Yeah, I know.
gospel,
But I just
I'm
want to tell the story
I can
because
go
it
to.
came up.
I'm just
Also,
looking at it as a piece of art, and a piece of art in and of itself should not be religious teaching. And so I was watching it, going, okay, I have problems here. I don't think this is good. This cinematography is incredible, and this shot here, and stuff like that. But and when
performances great.
people bring up, oh, wasn't Passion of the Christ great? I was like, man, it's an all right movie. And then they get upset because
There's so
they
many.
think,
There's so many better Christ movies. Though. Anyway, I don't know. King of
yeah,
Kings comes to mind.
yeah, I'd rather see
Anyway,
the road, to be honest.
the Robe. Yes, the Robe. Victor Mature, fantastic movie. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so I just want to bring up Ren, and because it came up. Also, the film was banned in many southern theaters for its opening weekend, just because it fell on Easter, so they didn't open it till Tuesday in some states, which is crazy to me.
Well,
But I will say the adjusted
Grindhouse opened Easter weekend too, so remember
the
that.
inflation box office amount is over 100 million. So it would be pretty big in this day and age, and I
Mm-hmm.
guarantee it would probably transfer better overseas now with Del Toro's track
Reputation,
record
yeah.
and track record.
Mm-hmm.
Critical response then and now we tend to use Rotten Tomatoes around here as an aggregate, nothing major. 81 on the tomato meter and 66 on the popcorn meter. I can't believe we're calling it the popcorn meter. And what I will say is, there are some great reviews out there, but the one that I was looking at the most, Rich, that was amazing, right? Um, Fucking our friend Roger Ebert. The praised, knock on wood for Roger Ebert. He gave it 3 out of 5 stars and said, and I quote, Ron Perlman, and in Ron Perlman is found an actor who's not just playing a superhero, but enjoying it. He chomps a cigar, twitches his tail, battles his demons with something approaching glee. You can see an actor in the process of making an impossible character really work. That is
Mm-hmm.
pretty much in a nutshell everything, that goes without saying. I will say I was looking at different things, the different aggregates. It's only at 66 for the audience meter, and actually the interesting thing is CinemaScore, which is a very famous survey that come when you come out of a theater, people only gave it a B minus on a
That's
scale of A to F. I was looking
mm-hmm.
at that. That's pretty shocking for a movie that's considered classic now.
Mm-hmm.
So 66 is about right, B minus range on
I
the
will say,
popcorn meter.
and we touched on this before though. This is his best work, some of his best work as an actor, because Del Toro gives him some real meat to play in the
Oh yeah,
script.
the father son dynamic of him and John Hurt, the little touches the flourishes he put in, like that they're fighting, the idea
The
that
the
he hides a cigar from his dad.
the
Yeah,
unrequited love that he has for Selma
him with
Blair's
Liz Sherman,
character, Liz.
Liz Sherman.
Um,
Yeah, it's really great. He gets to run the gamut in the movie and fight
yeah,
monsters.
there's one genius thing, and I it kind of comes from the comic, but he really brings it to life. Is playing this character as somebody who's just doing a job, and he's kind of sick of the shit going on. And he's kind of upset with his job, but he's like, it's the job, I gotta do it, I'm the only one who can. And he kind of he's a very blue collar superhero in that way, I think. And I think that helps the character connect with the audience, and therefore the audience can accept all the other fantastical things going on
Well, yeah,
around.
the cat thing. There's a fight in the middle of the movie that's absolutely spectacular in the subway, where the lady's like, "Somebody save my kittens," and he kind of looks at like, "Oh, gotta save the kittens," like,
He's like,
and
I know I'm going to do it, but it's going to be a pain in my butt.
yeah, it's a superhero trope that gets played out to its nth degree of like saving kittens during this fight with the Samael creature, right? And
Yeah.
you're just like you're watching it the whole time, and he picks up the cats. People are screaming. He's dragging the creature. He's like and the lady's like, my kittens, my kittens. And he's like, lady, can you give me a break? I'm just trying to stop this thing, and your kittens are fine. You know what I mean? Like, give me a break. And he kills the creature and he hands her the cats, and she holds the box up so he can play with the kittens, and he's like, it's my job. And he's like, he sticks his big giant paw out and just starts petting the kitty under its chin. And it's both endearing so that you fall in love with him as a character. I think he's the most fully realized character in the movie, right? He is the one.
Oh,
he is
yeah.
bravado. He is a 5-year-old. He is everything that you would want in a hero. Also, he's brave. He's selfless. He's constantly looking out for his teammates. Although he's reckless, right? But again, I think that's part of like the layers that Del Toro piles on, where he gives this character. He's both 60 years old and a child, right?
Yeah.
And Perlman plays both in varying degrees. Like how quickly, like there's a sequence with a 9-year-old kid that's absolutely spectacular. Why don't you just go tell her you love her? I can't take advice from you. You're a 9-year-old. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? He's like, well,
yeah, it's a great moment.
It's a great moment.
Nice,
it's like
quiet acting moment.
Yeah, it's a great little acting. I can't take advice from you. You're a 9-year-old. And there's some real chemistry with him and Selma Blair. Selma Blair didn't always get lucky with finding chemistry with people in movies with her, right? She sometimes she got stuck with duds. You know what I mean? And I think there's real chemistry there.
Yeah, one other thing too I noticed while watching it this evening before the show was this could not have been made just a few years later without straining some credulity for the audience, because this is like right at the precipice as phones with cameras are starting to happen, and he's supposed to be like this. There's supposed to be all this like clandestine unit, but he isn't in public an awful lot. People are seeing him. It's, the secrecy thing is kind of like right out the window, it feels like. But, but when they talk about, the urban legend of Hellboy on the news, no one ever has a really good picture. So,
it's not clear. There's not clear. Why? Jeffrey Tambor has a great moment where he's talking to like a Bill O'Reilly type news fixture, right? That was popular.
I read him as a Larry King substitute.
Larry King? You read him as Larry King? That's fine. It is more Larry King. He's got like the tie. Yeah, you're right. And the suspenders. Good job. And he goes, because my question is not that there's a conspiracy, but why are the pictures always so blurry? And it's a great moment. It's funny. Like, and also I think, I think one of the great things about the movie, two things that impressed me, like the practical special effects are great. The makeup by Rick Baker is really good, right? But again, the John Hurt, Ron Perlman dynamic, and then later on it gets layered in with Rasputin, where he's like, "I should have been your father. I would have taught you how to do things the right way. You're destined for greater things." And, and just the culmination moment where Myers, the FBI agent that's been brought in by John Hurt because I'm not going to be around forever because he gets an oncology report early in the movie, and Abe is the only one that knows he's going to pass away. And then he's later killed by the villains, right? Becomes like a revenge thing. But the Myers moment where he throws him, he's like, "You're not who you are. You're who you were meant to be. You're the way you were raised."
It's
really
a very
great.
Interesting. It's a very interesting way to address the whole nature versus nurture conflict, idea.
Yes, and
he's a human, but he was a baby, so we raised him right, and he has a good heart, even if he's kind of gruff.
He likes Baby Ruth and kittens. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So I think it's an interesting way to kind of explore that whole idea in a fun way too, and still make it the core thesis of what your finale is going to.
And there are a couple other scenes. There was a scene in a garbage truck that I didn't remember until I rewatched it today, and it's this great moment where the garbage truck, you can't see in the garbage truck, but they can see out of the garbage truck, and Ron Perlman as Hellboy says, Oh, Abe, look at them. They're looking at us. They can't even see us. We're on the other. It's like they're right on the other side of the glass. And Abe Sabine's like, just another day for me. Yeah, and it's like,
Mhm.
because he's always on the inside of the glass. He's always, he's always being peered at by other people. Did you meet the fish guy? They don't even call him by his name. I think one of the great pleasures of the movie is the production design, how well it's shot. It's all Del Toro touches that
Mhm.
we've now come to expect from him, right? And it started with Blade 2 for me. Like Chronos was great, but Blade 2 is where he actually, for me, I was watching Blade 2 going, this guy has got something. And then this movie comes out and you're like, holy shit. Like not only does he have it, but he can,
Yeah.
when you
I
realize he's writing and directing these things, he
yeah.
can move it the way he wants to.
Yeah. I also don't want to leave out the original source
Yeah,
material.
Mignola
Mike
stuff is great.
Mignola, who created Hellboy as a comic book as an indie comic book for Dark Horse. There's a couple of times you can see some other Dark Horse related stuff on like a poster for another Dark Horse comic on the wall in Hellboy's uh, room, a couple of other things here and there. But like the look of Hellboy, he's just stepped right off the comic book page. The same with Abe Sapien. Um, and
Yeah, Mignola's
I
work is
think
fantastic.
it's a case where Mignola's artistic sensibilities and horror
and
influences
and Del
exactly.
Toro, perfect. Yeah,
They're
perfect
two
match.
cogs that just work right together.
Well, and that's another thing I want to bring up. Like, I didn't, and when you're younger, you don't notice these things, but like the idea of labyrinths, of making the right choices, of going down the right hallways, going down the left hallway, whatever way you're going, it's throughout the
Uh-huh.
entire movie, right? And it's an interesting thing. Again, I think one of the things about Del Toro that we don't appreciate enough is when he's writing these movies, he's layering them. I think we've taken for granted that he's an amazing, person that can put his imagination out there, but we don't always take it credit. Like we don't give him enough credit for building scenes, building characters, building relationships. He does a really great job with this material, right? Where the interconnectedness of it, like even the villains have this amazing little camaraderie where they're working together. Like the one, the girl's obsessed obviously with Rasputin. Rasputin's obviously a megalomaniacal crazy person. But the idea of a guy that works like a clock, it's great. And John Hurt is really good in this movie as the older, Professor Broom. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's a really good it's a really good movie. And the more
Dude,
I
John
the rewatch.
good performance. Who could have seen that coming?
Well, yeah,
Only
but
every.
well, no, but the rewatch. The interesting thing in the rewatch is I don't think we appreciated it because right on top of this, as this movie hits, we start to see seeds about how things are going to build, right? And this is the beginning of the build that comic book movies not only can be made close to the source material, but they can also be profitable, and that's where legacy and franchise viability comes in.
I
So
would
we
dare
get
say it also shows you can have some emotional resonance. You can have actual characters who have issues and things that they're trying to get through, and even emotional storylines
and
that
relationships.
that exist outside of the story of fighting the bad guy. And ultimately, some of that might weave into the climax, which is perfectly fine. But the fact that that it does even exist at all separately and isn't entirely a function of just
So yeah,
the
I
bad guy
I think
plot.
I think the interesting thing here is legacy. We could talk about how many Hellboys have been made, how many we've had two reboot. We're about to have our second reboot. We've had one sequel, two reboots. Um, so we can talk about that as a legacy that the franchise is always kind of viable, right? They've all made money. They didn't do great with the last one, and this new one doesn't look like it's going to make a ton at all. But what I
No.
would say is the legacy here is it's a precursor, like you said, that these superheroes are not only superheroes fighting bad guys, but they have relationships. They might have dreams, hopes, desires, than just fighting the next batch of bad guys, right? And the Batman movies in the 90s led us to a place where eventually we just got sick of watching Batman because Batman you know, was wasted in the Schumacher movies. But it's one of those things where you're like looking at it going, oh my God, right? We can do, we can have a character that's maybe pining for the person he runs the team with. You know what I mean? And the legacy there would be like if you watch the Hulk and Black Widow in the MCU movies, the Liz and Hellboy thing isn't that far off the dynamic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Liz channeling her inner monster, and eventually the only place she can, the Beauty and the Beast situation where she becomes a beast as well. So it's Beast and Beast, right? Which comes, in other movies as well. The franchise viability, you know, I think people love this character. I think it's a popular comic book series. I think the animated movies have been pretty good. I think
Yeah,
I think
I
people
think
want to see this character. I,
I think they did
I
like that. I don't see any excitement for this new movie though. That's the problem.
at
No
all.
one's talking about it online at all. I don't
The
see any buzz. I
trailer's
barely
terrible.
seen any.
The
I've seen
trailer's
nothing
terrible. The guy
on.
playing Hellboy is not like at least with the last reboot, we had some modicum of excitement. It
Oh,
had a
hey, Dan
franchise.
Barber.
Yeah, David Harbour, right? A little bit of Stranger Things. Also, and this is a minor thing, but again, for fans of the horror genre, Mila Jovovich is nothing to hack at with regards to being a villainess, right? Like she has a lot of street cred in many an action horror film. But that movie didn't connect either. And I think part of is another terrifying legacy or franchise viability thing. But the first two Del Toro movies are so fucking good, Rich, that possibly like people,
That
is
raised
it
the bar too high.
right? Is it feasible that people like look at the new ones and go, well, I don't seem to be good. Like Ron Perlman was perfect. Selma Blair was perfect, or Del Toro directing was great. And, because I was looking, I did a quick look at Hellboy 2, right? That movie is at 86% from critics and 76% from the popcorn meter. So like the second movie was more well received than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one, Rich, if you remember, ends on a cliffhanger. It ends on a cliffhanger where they basically said, Hellboy might actually have to fulfill his destiny. And so I don't know about you, but I was one of the people waiting for the end of the Del Toro because everything
Well,
we're raised on a trilogy. We're trilogy people, Rich. And
that's
so like I think part of the reboots getting pushed off like is partly because there's a lot of love for the first two, and then there's also like this thing maybe in the base of your stomach, the trauma, as you would say, that we were talking about earlier, where you didn't get the third one that we would have filled the need, and then the reboots come off as money grabs, like money grabs. And this new one, Rich, the trailer is bad. Like it looks bad. Like the
I know.
and the thing I would say to you is what looks really bad is that the guy playing Hellboy does not look charismatic, charming. There's no bravado. We go from Ron Perlman, who's perfectly cast. We go to David Harbour, who does a pretty good job in the Hellboy reboot, but the movie itself is all over the place. And then
Mm.
we get this new one, and it's like it might be a great story, but it the look of it looks cheap, it looks boring. Although Mignola is directly involved with this one. Let's get some comments as we clear some things
And
up.
honestly, as you're checking those real quick, I kind of just did a look. I see no advance ticket sales for this movie to generate excitement. There's no, it's still about 36 hours too early to start seeing full schedules for next weekend. But some of the theaters that seem to have that up in my area, at least, don't have anything really.
Well, we originally did it because it was supposed to open this weekend. I don't think it's opening this weekend.
I
And
don't know
and
if it is.
I, I
It's a smaller opening.
yeah, but that would be well, maybe I don't know. Jeremy is a badass runner. I think Vin can do any family theme movie. Yeah, but
Yeah, because I probably won't watch those.
are we talking Hellboy? Yes, we're talking Hellboy. Let Doug speak. We should let Doug speak. I agree with that. New Hellboy looks smallish. Yeah, I think it
That's a
looks
good word.
smallish. Smallish is right. It looks like a low budget affair, and it also looks, again, the key to any Hellboy movie is that Hellboy has to look cool, right? Bravado. There's got to be some machismo to it. His creature's more Cloverfield than Godzilla and Pacific Rim. Yeah, well, no, but even the Pacific Rim movies are very Cthulhu-ish, right? The hello, brothers, I made it. Thank you for making it, Sean. We appreciate you. Second date, no tongue. Yeah, he has great lines. Del Toro gives him great lines. She found chemistry with Sarah Gellar. Laugh out loud. Yes, I would agree with that. But I think most of her guys have been duds, Sean. That kissing sequence. Oh, anyway, two cartoons. Anyone see them? Yeah, the cartoons are actually pretty good. They're solid. They have animation style that is very comic booky. The new movie is darker. Yeah. Okay. Great. You can be dark and still have the elements that make a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm sure we can all agree that the Hellboy material lends itself to be darker, right? I just don't know. Like I think Ken, the problem is it's not just that the movie's coming out. There's no excitement, and there's not even posters up. You know what I mean? And he's an eminently posterable character. You know what I mean? Like he's a character. Like he could have horns. He might not have horns. They're shaved off. But there haven't been posters. There was a poster. There was a standee for Red One, and I'm like, that comes out in 3 months. You know what I mean? And there's nothing for the new Hellboy anywhere. I would have preferred a new Darkman movie over Hellboy. Well, I'm not going to lie about that. I think Darkman's one of the most underrated movies ever made. So, for the
I just
trailers,
watched it about 2 months ago, and because I got that new
holds up.
Shout Factory disc, and it's a banger, boys.
It's a good
Girls,
movie.
let me tell you. Yeah.
From the trailers, I'm hoping it's good and dark. The Crooked Man story is great. Yeah, but I'm not. I haven't read the comics, right? So I'm just going by what I'm seeing, and the trailer looks like any PG-13 teen horror film, and then Hellboy shows up in the middle of it, and you're like, "Holy shit, this is the Hellboy trailer!" Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, but I would say that one of the endearing legacies, we talked about it first before everybody came in. We did some comments. I think the endearing legacy is that it showed that you could make three-dimensional comic book movies. Because remember, up until this point, we had the two Blade movies that were pretty good, right? And then this movie kind of comes out and kind of solidifies. Yeah, and this is again when comic book movies were box office anthem. You know what I mean? They were the opposite. Let's see.
Yeah.
New Hellboy is more comic accurate, just like the new Crow. I agree, though. Barely any publicity. I searched my area and can't find it. Yeah, okay. That is not the best way to get people excited about going to see it, Joe. Just telling you. I love you, buddy. But it's like it looks more comic accurate, like the Crow. Someday, Joe, we're going to have a long talk over a beer and some wings about how bad the Crow was for me. All goes. And I'm going to tell you right. It's not a spoiler, but it's already out. It's already on home streaming. I'm going to tell you right now, Joe. The key to it, and as I think I told Rich this. The key to it. There is a moment in the movie where he goes to visit a friend after he becomes the Crow, and he gets shot, and he falls into a bathtub full of water. I'm going to leave this with you, Joe, and this is where we're going to end the show tonight. Why did the friend have a full bathtub of water except for the effect that he's going to bleed in the water and then get up out of the water and it's going to look cool? Still haven't figured it out. Still haven't gotten it. And it bothered me the rest of the movie, Rich. Like that one thing when you're watching a movie and you're like, That was so stupid. I can't get over it. I ask you, Joe, tell me why the friend had a full bath. By the way, just so we're clear, the friend is a male. He appears to be a drug dealer and a DJ. Why does he have a full bath going, Joe?
That's
Why is
redundant. No.
but again, Legacy it showed it showed the potential of comic book movies, right?
I'm doing some searching here, and I went over to the numbers, our favorite box office site.
Great
And
set.
I'm looking at their release schedule, and they don't even have it listed for this coming weekend at all. And they have stuff.
I wonder if it got moved because of um the Halle Berry movie. I wonder if it got moved. I wonder if it got shit.
I
I
would
wonder if
not
we're
be surprised.
I wonder if we're
Um,
gonna. Plus, the Substance is opening this week. I wonder if it got moved. Yeah, we were talking about you. You really like the Substance. Anyway,
Yeah, I just did. I just did a search down their entire schedule for Hellboy, and it's not bringing anything up.
I
So
wonder if it
it's
got moved. I wonder if it's like we're gonna look up and January is gonna hit and it's gonna be
if
dropping that
it's their
second week
plan,
of
they haven't
January.
announced a new date. They have not announced a new date yet.
No,
So it's just in.
but
Oh, it
I
may
think
we may just it's on streaming. Look at that.
yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? But the
Yeah, I
Legacy
wouldn't.
is again. This is a great. The first two Hellboy movies are really good movies. They're really well done, and Perlman is perfectly cast. Um, okay, let's see. There are people saying that when they died and brought back, they didn't see a light. More of a feeling of falling water and brought back coming out of water. So maybe that where they came from. Yeah, but it's no. Sorry, no. Has nothing to do with the water. Because again, it's the DJ's apartment and the water is in the tub. And it's all set up so that when the gangsters break in, they shoot him and he falls into the bathtub of water. So it looks a little bit like John Travolta in Pulp Fiction. And then the blood's coming out of the bullet holes into the water. So it looks really cool and gross. And then, of course, he flexes back up and he stands up out of the water like, fucking hate that movie. IDB has no American release date. Life not like. I got you. Okay, so couple matters of business. We are off next week. Rich has a very important get. As you know, we work around Rich when we can, if we have to, and we are going to work around because he has a very important screening next week. So
No, that's not screening. That's I'm on set for a
Oh,
week.
you're on set. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm
It
giving
doesn't
up an
matter.
important screening to be on set for a week. So
You're being on set. You're being on set, but you're being paid.
yes,
Correct. That takes precedent. Getting cash and doing what you love takes
cash
precedent.
money.
Cash money. So we are off next week, but we will return. We will return on the 30th of
2
September,
weeks.
and 2 weeks from now. And when I tell you we're excited, we're both excited. It's easily two of we both love this movie to death. You know, for kids. Hudsucker Proxy, Tim Robbins, Jennifer Jason Leigh doing her best His Girl Friday impression, and Paul Newman. It is a very
A
funny.
cigar like no one's ever smoked a cigar before.
Yeah, Paul Newman is fucking tastic. It's whenever you can go down a Paul Newman rabbit hole, do it. It was the best thing I'd had last year. After that Paul Newman documentary came out, but we're doing the Hudsucker Proxy on the 30th. Rich, where can people find you and what you're doing? You got a lot of reviews this week. What are some of the things you can't talk about, but you are reviewing? Can't talk about now, but you can tell us what you're reviewing, right?
All of my writing and reviews can be found at FilmBuffOnline.com. Coming up this week, I've got a review of The Substance, which I really, really liked.
And you don't like horror movies.
And I don't like horror movies, but this is really fucking good. I've got a review of the documentary that's getting a limited release this weekend Superman, the Christopher Reeve story.
Going to see that Saturday. I'm very excited.
Incredibly moving. If you even have the slightest attachment to his performance as Superman, definitely bring some tissues with you, because I was crying at least 3 or 4 times through that thing.
I was crying through the trailer, Rich. I'm sure I'm going to be crying through the movie.
I know. It's a wonderful film. I've got a couple of other things coming up. Also on Thursday or Friday, I will probably have a review of My Old Ass, the new Aubrey Plaza film, which I will be seeing Wednesday. And possibly a Disney Plus TV series that I can't name yet. But
Agatha.
but I will have a review of the first 4 episodes of that probably by the 18th.
Just giving you a heads up.
I think it's the embargo date on that.
That cough was very witch-like in nature. It was bad.
And I have, 1 or 2 things hopefully dropping next week as well.
What about the socials, my friend?
Oh, wait, before I even get there to the socials, and the other things I do, not this Friday, but starting next Friday, I made reference to this a couple of times, the Super Secret Writing Project. Next Friday, the 27th, begins a 8-month-long series of articles.
8 months.
8 months, dropping once every Friday from now through somewhere in mid-May, where we are taking, myself and my partner over at FilmBuff Online, Bill Gadavasquez, we are doing a deep dive into the history and the impact over 50 years of Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live comes back on the 28th for the beginning of their 50th season. There's a New York and LA opening of the Saturday Night Movie from Jason Reitman that weekend as well, after premiering at TIFF in Toronto a couple weeks ago to a lot of very positive praise. And so we're going to ride that bandwagon for a while. Actually, this is something we've been working on for several months now.
Well, that's great. I'm very excited.
Yeah, we have, we have most of our stuff written all the way through like into January already. So that's how far ahead we've been working on this one. And I'm very excited to start rolling those out in a little under 2 weeks. So, look for that also at FilmBuff Online. FilmBuff Online, we also have a Facebook page where we always post when our new articles and reviews go up. So if you're on Facebook, give us a like there.
We also try to share them in the Loud and Nerdy group and on the Indie Escape page.
I also do 2 other podcasts. One is called The Big Picture Podcast that I do with my very best friend, Natasha Bogutsky. And
she may be joining us soon. She might be not busy.
She might be joining us soon, but we are back. We are dropping as soon as I finish editing it after we're done here. Our new we're going to drop our first new episode of the season tomorrow. So look for that wherever you get your podcasts. And
What's it about? What's the episode about?
The episode is about what we did on our summer vacation, or going, traveling and seeing movies, and how travel and movies can sometimes, kind of cross over. She went to Paris for a week and did some time, spent a little time going to some
time
Paris
in a theater,
and also the Georges Millet Museum in Paris. I was in Los Angeles for a week and went to Quentin Tarantino's theater and the Academy Museum. So we talk about those experiences. We're also recording our next episode tomorrow, so we'll have something else to drop that week while I am off doing other stuff. And you can find that at bigpicturepodcast.com or bigpicturepod.com, excuse me, or the link on FilmBuff Online and on the socials. Jesus God, this is the longest bit of promo I've ever done.
You got more shit. You got more shit going on.
I know, and I'm excited. I'm happy, man.
Yeah, we're doing well.
Please enjoy it. It can be found on the socials as @FilmBuffRich on Twitter, and Blue Sky.
Okay. I'm JW the Movie Guy on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, um, X, but fuck them, and all these different places. I also want to give a big shout out to TJ Bowser and his show on Project Louder. We did an episode last Wednesday night. We did an episode, and it was really fun. He does it. He does it with a wonderful British person, and who is big a film buff. But the kid's on a different time length, so we did it at 6. And so it was fun. And we had a really good time discussing Suspiria. And I just wanted to give him a shout out that TJ was very welcoming and having me on his show. So check that one out. We did Suspiria. We had a really good time. And I probably going back there in the future. We had a blast doing that episode. But thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks for the Hudsucker Proxy. Go see a movie. Lots of good things out. Batman Day this week. So it might be playing in your area. 89 Batman. Enjoy your week. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks for the Hudsucker Proxy.
This coming weekend. That's my